Hi, I'm Laura Handke, Lake Oswego's transformational voice teacher. And for my vlog today, I am interviewing Paul Bright, who is the writer, producer, director of this film, major motion picture that I am actually in. And he just clarified that I am not an extra. So why don't we go back and start that conversation?
Right, so the feature film is Pocket Mouse Protector, and it's releasing this summer to festivals, and then will be on wide release probably this winter. And Laura is in this movie. She first classified herself as an extra, but she is not an extra in this movie at all because her role is vital to the story. If she wasn't in this movie, along with the other folks who are with her, this film wouldn't work. So she was not expendable, like the idea of being extra is like an expendable. She was vital. She was crucial to the storyline and the plot points that come along. So I'm delighted you're in it. Thank you, Laura.
Well, and that warms my heart. So thank you for saying that. Feel good.
Pocket Mouse Protector came about 2 summers ago. We were starting into the pandemic. We'd been in the pandemic several months. I was driving to my boyfriend's house and I was thinking, oh, wow, wouldn't that be weird if they finally come up with a vaccine and it turns men gay? And I was like, that's of course absurdly ridiculous. And this is not in any way how a person changes their sexual orientation or anything like that. But I was like, yeah, that's really like campy. That's absurdist. That's ridiculous. I should make that into a movie. Yes, that's an idea. And then I was going, but wait. If I do a vaccine, then that just feeds into all this controversy over vaccines and so forth. And there were even evangelical peoples out there who were claiming that the vaccine would turn you homosexual.
Or make you sterile or whatever.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, can't be that. Oh, I know. How about a virility drug? That's it. Yes. So the idea evolved over about 8 months, 9 months. So I came up with the idea around July, and I had a finished script sometime around February, roughly. And then we started filming. I started filming in April. This was a much longer shoot than I customarily have done in the past. Sometimes my film shoots are spread over only 2 weeks. For this one, I wasn't wanting to stress myself out. And so I started filming scenes in April and I finished filming scenes in July. And then I went back and I filmed another whole scene that I threw into the movie in this past February. So there was almost a full year of filming. I had to reshoot a couple of scenes because of technical reasons. They just didn't work out right.
Mhm.
There was an actor who was going to be one of the leads in the film, and just a few days before the movie was going to start filming, I was flying him in from out of state. His mother passed away.
Oh,
And he was in no shape to film, and he asked to be released. There was no way that I could reschedule him because he was in all these crucial scenes with lots and lots of other actors who had schedule conflicts coming up later. So in a scramble, literally, I think it was in 4 days, I found someone else to replace this actor in this film. So things like that happen in the exciting world of making a movie. You could call it exciting or stressful, depending on your point of view.
yeah, or a little bit of both, maybe.
Yeah.
So, just a little bit about your background. How did you get into movie making? Where did that come from in your life? Was it something that you like just grew up knowing you wanted to do, or just tell us about that?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I was writing little scripts. I started writing scripts in second grade, but I knew that my second grade classmates weren't actors, so I made little puppet shows.
Ah,
I was the geek. I was the total nerd. I was still doing puppet shows in junior high. Until finally, come high school, I was able to start directing other people my age, my classmates. And so I directed some high school projects and some projects through the religious organization that I belonged to at that time. And then things evolved. I was also discovered as an actor when I was 16 years old. I was living in LA. My high school was just down the street from a talent agency in Beverly Hills. And I had the right look. So some of it might have been personality, but mostly it was just the way that I looked. And so I was cast in TV commercials a lot for about 7 years. And so that got me started in that road, and it also gave me a good sense of how the Hollywood studio system works, the studio system that exists as we know it,
Mhm.
and the ins and out of the politics and how people treat each other and how they horribly mistreat each other in this industry. And so it was a great learning experience from all of that. And when I was 23, 24, I left.
Okay. And you moved to Oregon?
No, I didn't know what else I was going to do because all I had really done in my life was be an actor. And I had written meanwhile, while I was there, I had written a script for a feature film, and I gave it to a person who was running a Meals on Wheels program that I was volunteering with. The thing about being an actor in LA is that you can't get a job because if you get a job, then you're not really a successful actor.
Mhm.
So yeah, my bills were being paid by doing TV commercials and an occasional bad TV show, but it was not satisfying or fulfilling at all. So I was volunteering a lot with a lot of organizations. Anyway, so I passed off the script to her. I didn't know it, but she was best friends with the wife of an executive producer at Disney. The wife read the script. The wife passed the script on to her husband. Her husband read the script. He called me into a meeting at Disney. At this point, I think I was 21. And he toured me around the lot on a personal tour, took a couple of hours out of his day to talk with me and fed me at the commissary, talking to me about how I could come work for Disney. And my answer was, well, I don't really write Disney material, but it's great knowing you and it's great meeting you and thank you so much. So yeah, I mean, it was a great compliment and it was a good ego feed. It was a recognition of, I guess, some innate talents that I have and training and skills that I'd learned, but it wasn't the right fit.
Yeah.
So in my mid 20s through mid 30s, I tried to find some other occupation or career that would fit, and I struck out. I tried working for the airlines. I went to work for the railroad as a conductor. I drove a bus. I started my own farm growing cut flowers. I was a school teacher, substitute school teacher for a while. I did lots of jobs trying to find something that was fully satisfying. By my mid 30s, I started a small theater company outside of Austin, Texas, which is where I was living at that time.
Okay.
And we produced 32 stage shows in 3 years, of which I was the artistic director and was directing about half of those. And after 3 years of this, we paid off all of our establishing fees, all our cost of building the theater building into the existing building. And there was no corporate sponsors in this smaller town. We were too far outside of Austin to get Austin sponsors to fund us. So I realized that I couldn't make a living doing that. And I was only sleeping 4 hours a night. After 3 years of still only sleeping 4 hours every night, it was too much. So I decided, I can make a feature film in the course of a year and more people will see that movie than if I fill every one of these 99 seats for every performance over the next 12 months. So I took a couple of years and I made my first feature film. I put it into the festival circuit and not a single film festival programmed it. I sent it to over 100 film festivals and no one programmed it. They hated it. It was not in the genre, the style that they were looking for at that time. And so one of the learning experiences that I had from this is that festival programmers often will program movies that they think they want their audiences to see.
Mm.
Not necessarily something that's entertaining, necessarily, depending on the festival, but it's depending on who that festival programmer was, and this was back in 2005, 2006. They were making gatekeeper decisions about the programming that they thought was important for
A
their.
lot of preconceived notions, in other words, just
Yeah,
like a lot of times when it comes to casting.
yeah. So then I sent it to this film had two leads in it, and the characters were both gay men. And in Texas, when I told people that I was making a movie about a gay man, they're like, "Oh, you're making porn?" I'm like, no, this is not pornography, So anyway, I was in Texas for another 6 or 7 years, and that whole time that I was living there, I was still dealing with this constant, "Oh, you're shooting porn?" No. Anyway, so I sent it off to the distributors that handled content that were geared toward gay audiences, and they all turned it down except one of them, one of the largest ones, sent it off to this tiny little one-man distribution house that had been around for 25 years. He'd been doing this for a very long time. And he watched the movie and he sent me back a message and he said, well, I'll distribute it for you. Maybe we'll be lucky and sell 300 DVDs. This is before streaming. This is still the age of DVDs.
Okay.
Turned out to be his best-selling movie that year.
Wow.
So that film is still regarded by many fans as the film they love most of what I've made. It's very touching. It's sweet. It's rough and raw in terms of production values, but it told a story that really captured a lot of people's hearts. I had some people tell me that it was one of their most favorite films, and they would watch it for comfort and reassurance.
Can you
So
tell
that's a wonderful feeling to have, to create this kind of content. It's a great feeling.
can you tell us the name of it? So if we
Yeah, that film is called Angora Ranch. Angora Ranch. Um, the log line is only takes one bunny for two men to fall in love.
oh.
So
Well,
anyway, after that, because of the success of that film, the distributor said, "Well, I'll distribute anything you make." So that was an open door for me. I had a small group of friends that had helped me with that project, and at this time, indie filmmaking was the digital age of indie filmmaking was very new. Technology wasn't talking to other technology. There were all these workarounds. People were experimenting about what kind of equipment to use or how to get different equipment to connect to each other. So it was all very uncertain about how things would work or what would work. I found a cinematographer for the second feature film that I really 6 movies with me, and same thing with the sound guy who shot another 7 movies with me, with Alex. So it was great. And what we had figured out is that as a starting up filmmaker, what I needed to do was create a lot of content as quickly as possible, so that as soon as somebody saw one film that they liked, then they would look for the other films, and that would be the financial way to make this a successful venture.
right.
So for the first 6 years, I turned out 5 films. So I was cranking them out about every 14 months, roughly.
Mhm.
After that, I moved to New York City for a couple of years where I was working as an actor, and things slowed down a little bit. And then I moved here to Oregon. I've been in Oregon about 10 years, and things slowed down a little bit more. But even so, now this is my 12th feature film since 2006.
Well, this is very clearly something that you were born to do. That's what I'm hearing. There's no, I mean, it's been in your blood your whole entire life since you were a young child.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's not part of my epigenetics. It's not part of the genetics of my family. My family had no theatrical connections at all, no motion picture connections at all. When the agent approached me and asked me to come to a meeting, I didn't tell my parents about it. I was 16, 16. I just went after school one day. And then I went home and I told them that night about what had happened. And of course, they're very suspicious. And I was suspicious because there's scammers out there. My father had a friend of a friend who was a soap opera star at that time. And so he called her up, not wanting to bother her, but asking if this agency that had contacted me was legitimate. And she's like, yes, it's one of the top 3. They want to sign him. Do it. So it was a lot of very fortunate circumstances. I was in the right place at the right time, but I was also putting myself out there because the agent had come to my high school to watch the People in Theater Arts production. I had done a lot of work to get into the theater arts production. So, I mean, it's a combination of right place, right time, plus all the efforts I had put in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk just a little bit more, just specifically about Pocket Mouse Protector, because that's the one that I'm in.
Of course.
Now, I know that you'd said some refilming needed to be done. There were some technical problems, but just like in a small nutshell, 2 things. First was you had said in the email, and by the way, audience, I have not seen this movie yet. I'm going to be seeing it next Tuesday with my fellow castmates. And Paul has invited us to this screening. And he said in the invitation that he's really proud of this film. So what I want to know is what were some of the real challenges and difficulties, but then in the end, also, what is it that makes you proud of this film? So tell us that.
This is my first comedy. And so, because I've done many other different genres, even though the lead characters have been homosexual men in really every movie, this is the first time I've done a comedy, and this is a screwball comedy, so it's similar to What's Up, Doc, or Bringing Up Baby, or the screwball comedies of the 1920s, 1930s, Howard Hawks, and so forth. So the script is over the top, ridiculous, absurd. One of the challenges that I had in making this movie is that some of my leading actors had a difficult time being serious when they were delivering the role, because it was easy for an edge of um, ridicule. That's probably the wrong word.
Breaking character is it, or
Well, so I mean, some of the dialogue is just absurdly ridiculous, and the only way that the comedy plays is if they deliver it as sincerely, honestly as possible, as though they really believe whatever it is they're saying.
I hear you.
So, in the case of a couple of performers, that they were not, they were having a struggle with that because they looked at how absurd the script is,
And you want to
and
laugh.
yeah, and they were, that was internally kind of affecting their performance. That's not what shows up in the film at all. Their performances in the film are amazing, extraordinary, really great. But it was a bit of a challenge during rehearsals to um, not go down that road.
I hear you. I hear you.
To accept that what they're saying as their characters, they 100% committed, believe in, you know, and all that stuff. That was one of the challenges. The reason why I'm so proud of it is because the performances are amazing. I will say that I have made feature films where not all of the actors were the strongest possible performers
Yeah.
in the world, and I've spent a lot of time in editing doing the best I could to enhance the great work that they did
Mm-hmm.
deliver.
Mm-hmm.
In this particular case, with this film, I was never, ever having to edit around anybody's performance, ever. All of the editing choices were based on the technical stuff about what looks better, what's, you know, what's in focus, what has better lighting, and so forth. And so that was a joy and a pleasure. One of the things that I've dreaded so much about editing my own films is looking at footage and discovering a scene that just won't work. There's nothing I can do to get it to work, no matter how much I manipulate it, no matter what I do to it. And that's always been a big terror that I have before I start the editing process. And with this one, as scared as I was, that was going to be the case. That was not the case. So editing all the way through this film was truly pleasurable, truly, truly pleasurable.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I could speak highly of each one of the actors in this film. If you had 30 minutes, I would give you a whole monologue about each of their performances, about how much I loved their performance. So yeah, and this cast, I mean, gosh, I don't know, there's 16, 18 people in this cast, 25, I'm not quite sure, I don't remember, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, well, and I'm not surprised to hear that because as we were discussing before I turned the record button on, I know a lot of these people through other avenues. And I had three of the actresses in this film read for my first play, and I know how talented they are. So it's awesome to be in the presence of this kind of amazing talent. And I love what you said about the editing, because you know what, I think it's just the average viewer doesn't understand how important that editing process is. And I mean, I can watch a movie that is like, to me, just the greatest movie in the whole world. Everything clicks. It's wonderful. And then I watch another one and something is off and I can't quite put my finger on why it isn't as great as this other movie. And in each case, I'll almost always say, it's the editing. It's gotta be.
Yeah, so I have an online course on the Udemy platform, udemy.com, about independent filmmaking. And it actually is the highest rated filmmaking course on Udemy, which
Good
is
for you.
great. But one of the things that I say in this course is the director and the actors don't actually make the movie, it's the editor who makes the movie. And so to the directors, I say to them, you know, yes, you're gathering all this material. It's like gathering the clay when you're doing all the filming and all the hard work and agony that you're putting into it. All you're really doing is gathering the resources, because it's when you go to edit it that you actually create the film itself. And that's, there are so many directors who just turn over the edit to somebody else. And I'm like, but the editor is actually making your movie for you.
Yeah.
So learn how to edit or be an integral part of the editing process, because that is actually where your movie comes about.
Yes. All right. Well, folks, with that, I'm just going to say thank you for joining in and listening to this amazing, talented man talk about his filmmaking process. And I sure hope you'll take the time to watch Pocket Mouse Protector, not just because I'm in it, but because of everything Paul just said. And so it's going to be submitted to film festivals, and it is being now. But where can people go to find out where they can watch? Is it Paul
Sure.
Bright? You,
Well, my website is paulbrightfilms.com. And
okay.
so you can go to paulbrightfilms.com. On Facebook, what would benefit most is if you go to the Pocket Mouse Protector movie Facebook page. I've hardly done any work on that page at all. There are very few people who follow it, but you could be part of the first to get the page going, and that would be totally awesome. I would appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Hey, so do that. Go to Facebook. And thanks again for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.